Okay, so blockchain. You've probably heard the word, right? It's everywhere. But what does it actually mean? Well, today we're going to cut right through all that hype. We'll break down exactly how this technology works and why some people are saying it could literally change everything. But before we get into the nuts and bolts, let me ask you something. Think about the last time you sent money, or checked your social media, or even looked up your own medical records. Did you ever stop and think, wait a minute, who's really in control of all that information? And that one question, well, it gets to the heart of two totally different ways of looking at the world. On one side, you've got the setup we all know and live with every day, a centralized system. A bank is a perfect example, right? They're the one single authority in the middle, keeping track of everything. But then there's this new idea, a decentralized network, where that power, that control is shared among everyone in the network. All right, so let's dig into that a little deeper. I mean, for basically all of modern history, our world has been built on this idea of centralization. We've always relied on these gatekeepers to handle our most important stuff. And who are these gatekeepers? Well, you know them. Banks, governments, the giant tech companies. They're the ones holding all the cards and all the data. Now look, sometimes that's efficient, for sure, but it also comes with some huge risks. I mean, what happens if that one central place gets hacked? Or if there's corruption? Or what if it just breaks? Suddenly you have this massive single point of failure that could take down the whole system. So if that's the problem, what's the answer? Well, this is exactly where blockchain enters the picture. It offers a totally different, almost radical way to exchange things of value without needing that middleman at all. Okay, so the big question, what is a blockchain? Let's break it down. At its very core, it's a shared digital record book, a ledger that's basically impossible to tamper with. Think of it like a magical notebook, but instead of just one copy, this notebook is copied and shared with thousands of computers. And every time something new happens, it's written down in everybody's copy at the same time. And here's the kicker. Once a page is written, you can never, ever tear it out or change it. So how does this magic notebook actually work? How do things get written in it? Well, it's a pretty cool process. First, let's say a transaction happens. That transaction gets grouped together with a bunch of others into what's called a block. Then, that whole block gets a unique, super secure digital fingerprint. We call that a hash. And finally, this is the important part. That new block is digitally chained to the one that came before it. And just like that, you're building a chain of blocks, a blockchain. And when you see it like that, you really start to get how different this is from, say, a normal database. A regular database, it's centralized. A blockchain is decentralized. A database can be vulnerable, right? It has that one weak spot. A blockchain, it's designed to be tamper-proof. But the biggest difference, the real game changer, is this. Data in a normal database can be changed or deleted. On a blockchain, it's what we call immutable. It's basically written in digital stone forever. Okay, but you might be thinking, how on earth does a system with nobody in charge actually stay secure? It sounds kind of chaotic, right? Well, it's not. It all works because of three really strong pillars of trust. So pillar number one is decentralization. Remember that shared notebook? Instead of it being stored on one server somewhere, it's copied and spread out across a huge network of computers, which we call nodes. What that means is for a hacker to succeed, they'd have to attack thousands of computers all at once. If one computer goes down, who cares? The network just keeps humming along. There's no single target to take out. Pillar number two is cryptography. This is the math that makes it all so secure. Remember that digital fingerprint, the hash, that gets stamped on every block? Well, that hash is created based on everything inside the block, but it also includes the hash from the block right before it. That's what creates the chain. So if someone tries to go back and change even one tiny detail in an old block, the hash will completely change, the chain will break, and the whole network will immediately know something's wrong. It really is like a digital tamper-proof seal. And the final pillar, number three, is called consensus. This is just a fancy way of saying agreement. Before any new block can be added to the chain, a majority of the computers on the network have to agree that everything inside that block is legit. They all follow the same set of rules to check the work. It's basically a democratic vote on what the truth is, making sure everyone stays on the same page. Now, I know what you're thinking. When you hear blockchain, you probably think Bitcoin, right? And that's totally fair. Bitcoin was the OG application that put this whole idea on the map. But trust me, it is just the very, very tip of the iceberg. The story of Bitcoin is pretty wild, actually. It all started back in 2008 with a paper published by this mysterious, anonymous person or group called Satoshi Nakamoto. Just 2 years later, we get the first real-world transaction. Somebody famously bought 2 pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin. Can you imagine? And then fast forward to 2021, and it's become so mainstream that an entire country, El Salvador, made it legal tender. That was a huge moment. But the real magic is taking those ideas, that security, that transparency, and applying them to, well, everything else. Think about it. In supply chains, you could track a head of lettuce from the farm to the truck to the store with no questions. In healthcare, you could have complete, secure control over your own medical data. People are even looking at it for creating voting systems that can't be tampered with or proving you own a piece of digital art. The possibilities are huge. So, when you put it all together, what does this mean for the future? Is this where we're headed? Towards a world that's, well, more decentralized? You know, way back in 2014, a guy named Mark Andreessen, he helped create the very first web browser, so he knows a thing or two about this stuff. He said the consequences of this breakthrough are hard to overstate. He saw it. He knew this wasn't just about a new kind of money. It was about totally rewiring how we trust each other online. And that really leaves us with one last massive question to think about. If we can actually exchange things of value, money, data, ownership, anything, directly with each other, with total security and without needing a giant company or a government in the middle, what changes? What does that world look like? And the answer, really, could be everything. And that right there is why this is all such a big deal.